Good evening. Thank you so much for coming. This is our first session for Elevate 2021. And for those of you who have not joined us before, Elevate is a group of really conversation starters. We're here to show up from very diverse backgrounds. We have life coaches, we have professional coaches, personal development coaches, people who do mentoring, relationship coaches, and more. And we bring you conversations that matter in your path of development. So here we are in January 2021, you made it. Congratulations. That's an accomplishment, I think, for all of us. And we wanted to start the year off talking about something that we felt like is very, very important. And before we hit the ground running, I want to just give some brief introductions and kind of set the scene for where we're going. So my name is Suzanne Buchanan, and I am a career communications specialist. I have a background in corporate communications, content, but also crisis communications and bringing people together to have conversations that matter. I was a United States Department of Justice mediator for 7 years. And this evening I will be acting as your host and kind of moderator. And so in addition to communications, I'm also a natural health specialist, and I help people overcome obstacles related to their health and integrate natural health solutions. And that's specifically for the chronic disease community. So I kind of have that background of helping people overcome obstacles. And as you can see, that fits into Elevate's theme, because we're here to raise the bar of who we are and where we're going. And after the shit show of 2020, we're not messing around. So I think all of us have things to do. And so let me introduce you to our speakers this evening.
Wally?
We do ask that if you are just joining us, you do mute your side so we can focus on moving. We're going to have speakers to connect with you. And then at the end, we're going to have question and answer session. So, you know, as we're going along, if things come to you, bring it, just save it. And then we're going to have that opportunity to engage. So, all right. So let's talk about, first of all, I am not alone in this Elevate endeavor, thank goodness. Michael Danclefs is here, and he is our co-host for the year. And he and I decided that we would engage in this troublemaking venture together and see where it goes. Michael has a background in IT, but you know, he's found his calling, I believe, and he does a lot more. To me, Michael feels like smooth jazz. When smooth jazz meets that friend that you can tell anything to and feel safe and have that conversation that means something, I feel like Michael is that person. And that bodes well for his coaching career that he's embarked on. He's really a catalyst. He helps people engage in a different perspective, kind of shift your paradigm. And he's an energy worker and a healer as well. So when it comes to his coaching approach, I think he specializes really in helping people show up, be accountable, and move the needle. Have a plan, more than a vision that we're going to talk about tonight, and step forward with it. And so that's why I'm so excited to have him with me for the year. And tonight he's going to speak. After, let's see, Michael's speaking at the end. And before him, we're going to have Kane Roselle. Kane is a relationship coach. And Kane has amazing energy and a beautiful presence that I know makes a difference when he helps couples. He brings men and women together over differences in communication and other issues that might be affecting their relationship. So I'm really, really excited to have him. He's also certified by the Mary Morrissey Institute and the Sterling Institute of Relationships. He's also a graduate. So he's done his homework, and his company is called Hourglass Life Coaching. So Kane's also going to speak with us. And then there's Alan. Alan is phenomenal. Alan is a force that's awakening, I think. And I'm really excited to have him. He's a background in IT, but when he speaks, he drops into a flow state that I think you're going to really appreciate. He has a gift for healing that he felt like awakened in him suddenly. And since then, he's been engaged in a coaching career as well. And he takes a very holistic approach with your body, your mind, your finances even. So anything you want, you've got it. And he goes deep. He talks about vibration, the work of, Bob Proctor, Wayne Dyer. So he's deep. I love it. And last and certainly not least, we have Devin Bailey from Shaping Reality. And what's great about Devin is I didn't meet Devin, I experienced Devin first. And when you experience someone, you know if they have something special, and he does. And I was super fortunate to experience Devin and then have the opportunity to work with him. He is an author. He is a professional and personal growth coach. He helps people transition their life, especially busy professionals that want something more, and they want to really have a mission-driven life. So Devin is dynamic, and I think he is so much wiser than he looks. I really, really enjoy him, and I pray that our paths continue to cross in the future. And so without further ado, Devin, I would love for you to start us off and hit the ground running. Would you be so kind?
Absolutely, Suzanne. Thank you so much for those kind words. I'm not sure how to follow that. So how about a couple of questions? How many of you are glad that 2020 is behind us?
I love it.
How many of you are excited about what 2021 may bring? Give me a quick wave. Then you have definitely come to the right place. So I'm Devin Bailey, and I would like to give you my welcome to Elevate Your Vision. The first thing I want to do is to acknowledge you guys for being there. There's an old saying that says 80% of success is merely showing up, and here you are. So I honor you for that, seriously. And next, I want to thank Suzanne and Michael for inviting me to join you all. I love what you guys are doing within your community, and I'm grateful to be a part of that on tonight's call. So we're here talking about the power of vision. And for me, vision is the first step in the creative process for anything. Look at it this way. There's nothing in this world that didn't first exist as pure thought. Said another way, someone somewhere had a vision for it. And those of you who may have heard me speak before or been to any of my live events, you'll know that, sure enough, I'm a man of action. I understand that taking action in the real world is how you produce results. And before taking action, I get clear on what I want first. You have to have a vision. And the more detailed, the better. Let me give you a silly example. Imagine sitting down to eat at your favorite restaurant, pre-COVID, of course, and getting the waiter's attention and saying, "Hi, I'd like some food, please." The waiter, of course, would look at you confused. You would stare back at him or her, providing no further details. And then after an awkward silence, the waiter would wander off in the direction of the kitchen. And about 15 or 20 minutes later, they'd come over with a plate of food and put it down on the table in front of you. Of course, it's nothing like what you wanted. So you yell at the waiter, you send the food back, and you complain. Sound like anyone's life? Now, whose fault was that? Well, it was your fault. No offense. It was your fault because you failed to provide specific details on what you wanted. You didn't order the dish you wanted. And my friends, I honestly believe life is no different. Believe it or not, I think we actually are getting, moment to moment, for the most part, what we ask for. The issue isn't that life is out to get us, or we're not worthy, or we're not good enough. The problem is, I don't think we're clear on what we actually want. And the significance of that point is that we need to understand that the brain is a servo mechanism. It goes after what you ask for. So having a vision, it informs your mind. It enrolls the natural goal-seeking capacity of the brain to go after whatever you point it in the direction of. So if you don't ask explicitly and clearly, if you don't have a clear vision for what you want, then is it really any surprise that you don't have the results you want in your life? Does that make sense? Envisaging a goal is a powerful way to gain clarity on how to actually achieve that goal and how to stay on track. If you can picture an outcome in your mind, then aren't you much more likely to actually go through the process that's needed to achieve that goal or to get there? I mean, numerous successful, impactful, influential, powerful people have talked about the importance of having a vision in reaching their goals. You've all heard references like, if you can dream it, you can achieve it. If you can see it in your mind, you can hold it in your hand. Whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. Honestly, this is nothing new. And yet, so few people engage the power of vision in the pursuit of what they want most. The biggest objection I hear to this concept is that people don't know what they want. And my response to that is, sure, it takes practice, but also understand this: vision isn't just a concept, it's actually a tool. Getting clear on what you want is an iterative process. The more you do it, the more clarity you gain. Here's a great analogy I love. Life is a lot like driving at night. You can't see the whole journey in front of you, but you can see 200 feet at a time, which is illuminated by your headlights as you move forward. And honestly, that's what I've experienced in recent years in what I do for a living, in my career, in my mission. Each step I take in my journey as an entrepreneur gives me clarity over the next step. There's no way I can see the whole way to get to where I want to go. But every time I take a step in the direction of it, a little bit more of the road reveals itself. What about you in your career or in your business? Have you experienced something similar? Now, the other area I often get resistance from people is that visualization and envisaging your future is kind of weird and woo-woo. So let's try and bring this down into some neuroscience and actually look at the neuroscience behind it to dispel the myth that it's weird and woo-woo. It's actually quite amazing what happens on a neurological level when you set a clear intention for something. Even without knowing how to get there, you enroll your neurophysiology in finding a way to get there. Your brain is like a heat-seeking missile. Most people, correct me if I'm wrong, give me a shake of the head if you don't agree, most people are not willing to commit to something before they know how to do it. Am I right? Unfortunately, they have it backward. It's actually in making the decision that you're going to make something a certain way that the how begins to unfold. And the reason is because the brain doesn't actually know the difference between imagination and reality. So what happens when you start to have a vision for something and you see what it begins to look like, you actually, believe it or not, start to establish new neurosynaptic connections in your brain. And this is the freaky part. And those connections represent the memory of something that hasn't yet happened. Just let that sink in for a minute. Do you think if you had the memory of how to do something, you could do it again? Absolutely. It starts with having a vision. That is where the process begins. It kicks off the necessary brain change. It changes the way you think. And then you start to have these thoughts and ideas of how to get there. And that is the how, which is presenting itself. The brain goes to work to bring to our attention all of the information and opportunities and conversations and people that we need to get to where we want to go. That, my friends, is the science behind why visualization is so important. Now, At this time of year, we're all setting New Year's resolutions, are we not? Who here has set any resolutions for the year? Well, did you know that according to the US News and World Report, the failure rate for New Year's resolutions is about 80%. And most people lose their resolve by mid-February. So you got 6 weeks, apparently. Now, how come? Well, I think it's because people fail to create a compelling vision, not necessarily you guys. Let's look at the definition. A resolution is a firm decision. It means being purposeful, determined, and unwavering. And yet, most resolutions are more about not doing something or eliminating something rather than a compelling vision to pull you forwards. I don't know about you, but I won't stay the course for long when I'm relying on willpower alone. I need something compelling that I have emotional resonance with to get me through the difficult parts. That is where vision becomes your gift. That's where vision becomes your friend. You must have a vision of what you want, not what you think you want or what perhaps you should want or what your friends want for you, what you truly deeply want so that you can have that emotional resonance and connection with the vision you're trying to create. A vision that works is one that excites you, maybe even scares you a little. If you have a compelling vision, you have that emotional resonance, then you're more likely to do what's necessary to get where you want to go. The other thing I would be remiss if I didn't point out is that there is a massive, what's the word? Massive difference between focusing on what you want versus focusing on what you don't want. And the temptation right now, more than ever, is to focus on what we don't want. I'm not sure if you guys have noticed, but there's a lot of shit going on in the world. A lot of people are unemployed. Many are sick. Much of the nation have had their aspirations and their dreams derailed or demolished by a global crisis. And by the way, I'm not just talking about the spread of COVID-19. To those people, I say this: I'm sorry. I'm sorry to all of you impacted mentally, emotionally, and physically. I wish I could wave a magic wand and end human suffering. I don't yet have that ability. On the other hand, I'm here to remind us as leaders of something significant. What you focus on expands. Where your attention goes, energy flows. We can't get sick enough to heal sick people. We can't get poor enough to help poor people. It's our job, all of us here on this call, to show up as the best possible versions of ourselves. And that starts on the inside with creating a compelling vision for the future, a vision for the future that you must create, one that you would be proud of, one that lights you up and fuels you to do more, be more, and give more. That, in my humble opinion, is how we can help humanity right now. When I was sick, tired, broken in my corporate life, when I longed to just give up on life altogether and quit, when I was utterly miserable and trapped in my poisoned existence, it wasn't until I shifted my focus from what I didn't want to what I wanted that things started to change. The fog began to clear. I focused on what I wanted to create: a mission-driven, purpose-centered life with meaning. Now, I have a clear and compelling vision for every area of my life. Remember, this concept works for everything: your business, your relationships, your finances, everything. May I real quick share with you my vision for my business and my mission, the thing that gets me out of bed in the mornings? I did it. I am a young and wildly successful entrepreneur and business owner. Not only am I unquestionably impacting companies and their leaders, but my books, courses, and live events are reaching millions of people. Millions. I have a passionate following of raving fans who light me up and are so much fun to serve. My dream of transforming the lives of millions is being realized. Oh, Tony Robbins, the one and only. Sure, I'd love to get together. Have your people get in touch with my people and we'll set something up. Do you think as a vision, and I laugh and smile because you got to have fun in life, don't you? Do you think as a vision that motivates me? Do you think that inspires me to show up even when I'm tired or afraid? You fucking bet it does. That vision is the North Star for my business. So here's what I want you to do. I want you for a moment to focus on your career or your business or what you do for a living, your vocation. And I want you to think for a moment about how it feels, where you are, where you want to be in this area of life. And I want you to spend a little bit of time each day, 3 minutes, preferably in the morning. It's 3 minutes, you can do it. I want you to dream and scheme about this area of life. Let that childlike wonder come out from within you and think about exactly what you want in this area of life. And I want you to come up with a compelling vision for the future in your career or business, just like I did. And I want you to do that for 1 week, 3 minutes a day for 1 week. And then I want you to get in touch with me. I'm serious. I want you to reach out to me and I want you to let me know how it's going. I want you to tell me what has shifted in that area of your life and tell me how you feel now you have a more clear picture of the vision for that area. Alternatively, if you want more, you could even join me at one of my live events. We're doing Powerful by Design twice this month, on Friday, January 22nd, and on Saturday, January 23rd. Tickets are available at the link on the screen, and we go deep into vision and clarity and purpose and how to create the habits that we need to create in order to get where we want to go. So my friends, that's it from me. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it, and all the best.
Thank you so much, Devin. Would you please pop that link in the chat section for our guest when you can?
Absolutely.
That would be fantastic. I love it. I don't want to waste any time because we're running a little bit over. So Alan, I would love for you to join us. And I think what Alan focuses on totally dovetails where Devin took us. And Alan, please.
There we go. Find my mute. So welcome everyone. Congratulations, as Devin said, for showing up. You're here is a big thing. It shows that you are in the right place at the right time. And thank you to Suzanne and Michael also for inviting me to share why vision is so important to me. So have you ever found yourself looking at an area of your life or even your whole life and felt helpless to change, or that there was no hope? Who here's had a time like that at any point in their life? So one day I found myself sitting at my desk, sitting there staring at my checkbook and a stack of bills next to it. And I found I didn't have enough money in the account to pay each bill. And I started to ask myself, how did I get here? And how do I get off of this bus? Because I don't want to ride this bus anymore. You see, I grew up in a family business and watched my parents give everything they had to it. They gave their time, their money, their energy, their freedom. Yes, they were successful, but they were tied to that business in every way. And in watching them, I had decided that I didn't want to sacrifice myself in that same way. But in watching them, I had created a belief within myself that what they had done is what it took to be successful. But I wasn't willing to do that. So there I sat, looking at my empty checkbook, feeling helpless, hopeless, and lost. I began to look for something different, something better. But where to start? I started questioning my life, why I was where I was. That's when Bob Proctor and others like him came into my life. And I heard him say, if I want to be free, I've got to be me. I better know who me is. But I had no idea who me was. I was being every should that I thought everyone else wanted me to be. But I had no idea what I wanted for me. And then I heard him say, most people tiptoe through life, hoping they make it safely to death. And since then, I've gone down the rabbit hole of personal development. And I've learned a lot of things, but I keep coming back to the one thing that I believe is the most important. And that is what I want to share with you here today, the power of your vision. It is very important to know what you want, to have that dream goal that you currently have no idea how you're going to achieve, to have that house of your dreams, the relationship you dream of having, running a successful business, having a fit and healthy body, whatever you envision as the best possible life for you. But even more important than what I want is to understand the underlying why. Why do I want that? And when I began to realize this, I created an exercise for myself to really help me get clear on what I wanted and why I wanted it. And for me, there are four steps to this exercise. The first step is to identify what I want. For example, that house, that relationship, the fit and healthy body, whatever that is for you. The second step is identifying why I want it. And here I repeatedly ask myself why until I get to the very base of what I want. For instance, I decided that I was going to grow my network marketing business. Well, that's a great goal, but why do I want that? Well, because it can be done outside of my work hours, and I can increase that income fairly quickly to help myself pay the bills. And eventually, as it grows, I can replace my job with this income. Okay, so why is that important to me? Well, first, I want to be able to pay my bills without having to decide which one. And second, I want to be able to release my need for that day job. Again, why is this important to me? I don't want to feel like this failure anymore. I don't want to have to tell my wife or my kids, we can't because we don't have the money. I want freedom to be able to spend more time with my family. I want to travel more. I want to have time to do the things I really love doing. Again, why is that important? It's because I want to feel abundant. I want to feel the peace in knowing everything is taken care of. I want to feel like I'm making a difference in the world around me. Now we've gotten to the real why, the feeling, the emotion. For everything we say we want, for everything we do, it's the feeling we get in the having or doing that we're really pursuing. It's the emotion that pulls us forward. And I always make sure I frame it in the positive. What do I want to feel, not what I don't want to feel? The third step is identifying any belief systems that are holding me back from achieving this goal. And this is one that can go deep, but it's very important because you will never do anything that you believe you are incapable of doing. And that one, we could spend hours just talking about belief systems, and that's a conversation for another night. And the fourth step is creating a vision. And I combine all of these steps into a written description. I write down exactly what I want, why I want it, and most importantly, I write down who the me that achieves this will be, how that future me thinks, how that future me feels, what emotions that future me lives in, what actions that future me takes on a daily basis to live this vision. And once it is all written down, you keep it in a place where you see it. Read it every day and allow yourself to feel what it will be like to be that person that you just wrote. In these steps, you will begin to close the gap between what you know how to do and what you actually do, because you are creating within you that person who would have those things that you want. And whatever we do, we can always distill the why down to because I will feel this when I do it. And once you truly understand this, you begin to choose for yourself the feelings you want to feel, and then consciously create the life you want by choosing the actions that will move you toward those feelings. And on the other side, you will reject the actions that will move you away from those feelings. For me, vision is no longer a noun, it's a verb. It's an action word. And I encourage you, each of you, to use this exercise for yourself. When you create within yourself the feeling you want based on this exercise, your vision will inspire you. It will pull you forward. And if you find yourself in procrastination, you're not moving toward your vision, then you're not an inspiration. And you really need to go back to steps 3 and 4. Really bring clarity to that why, that feeling, or look at the limiting beliefs that may need some overcoming. Now, each of us are on our own path, and we carry different beliefs on what is possible. And I encourage each of you to reach out to those who can help you build that vision, a dream that will pull you forward, whether it's myself or one of us here, or if there's a coach that you know and trust that you already talked to. And really, sometimes somebody else's belief in you will carry you as you build your own belief in your budding vision. I'm here to tell you that the vision you carry of yourself, your self-image, is who you are and who you will be. But you have the power to change your vision of yourself. When I was sitting there looking at my empty checkbook, the only vision I had for myself was, I'll never be successful because I'm not willing to do what's necessary to be successful. Now, I know I'm already successful because I can feel my future and I know what's coming. When I was sitting there looking at my empty checkbook, I couldn't even imagine a different future because present reality was so overwhelming and I didn't believe the more was possible for me. Now, I live the feeling of my future vision every day as I read my vision. When I was sitting there looking at my empty checkbook, I just wanted to get off the bus. Now I no longer want to get off the bus. I'm the driver of my bus. It's going where I choose. And I have the pleasure of inviting everyone I meet, including each of you, along for a ride in creating your own vision, your own life. So as I close here, I ask you, are you creating your vision for 2021? Or are you like so many in 2020, just letting life run completely over them? I'm here to tell you that whatever it is that you wish you were, the you that you wish you were, that any vision that you can dream, it's possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. And I love the asking why so many times until you get to the feeling. I think that's a best practice that all of us should really incorporate into our work as we're reflecting on who we are, where we want to go. Why do we want to get there? Why is that destination important to us? And how are we going to feel? So I love that. Thank you so much. Next, we're going to hear from Kane. And as I said, Kane specializes in relationships as well. And so he brings us a slightly different perspective of one of the most integral, important aspects for us. So Kane, I look forward to your wisdom.
Thank you, Suzanne. Thank you, Michael. My name is Kane Roselle from Hourglass Life Coaching. You know, Rosabeth Moss Cantor of Harvard Business School has a great quote around vision, and that is, a vision is not just a picture of what could be. It's an appeal to better ourselves to become something more. And so for the first part of my little lecture here, I'm going to try to impress upon you just how important relationships are so that we know why we need to make a vision for them. Have you ever heard the phrase, it's better to have loved and lost than never to have loved at all? Or David Bowie was once quoted saying, the greatest thing you'll ever learn is just to love and be loved in return. We are social by nature, right? So social to the point that before a person makes a major purchase, they go and they check with their friends, right? Or they make a big decision, and the first thing they do is they go check with somebody else to see what they should do or what they can do. Not only that, marketers have been using this forever, right? Social proof. Look at all my testimonials. Look at all my reviews, right? This is just such a thing that's been ingrained in our nature. It's the reason why, as an animal, we've become so successful in doing whatever it is that people do, So the thing about it is that strengthening your relationships actually requires a level of self-awareness, because relationships are actually an inside-out job. And the thing is, right, our thoughts, whatever we're thinking, produces our feelings. We know that people act on their feelings, and your actions are inevitably what produce results in any part of your life. But in my life, I've lost many, many, many loved ones. And the interesting thing I find is that people love to waste time when the people they care about are accessible. How many weddings, funerals, birthdays I've been to, and everyone's like, oh yeah, we should totally get together. I don't know why I only see you on weddings, birthdays, and funerals. And the next thing you know, somebody else passes, you ain't got no more opportunities. It's not going to happen. And the thing that really kills me, having been through this many times, what I've noticed is it is literally down to the smallest inconveniences that I thought of when somebody close to me passed away. One such example, I remember being 10, 11 years old. We were living in Florida, and my mother passed when I was 12, so just a couple of years later, of a terminal illness. And fortunately for me, we had a very, very good relationship. There was a lot of love. She loved her children. She loved her family. But out of all the things that I could think about when I didn't have any more days left, it was this silly little thing. Our family was getting ready to decorate the tree, our annual thing. And in my childlike innocence, I just asked a question: do you mind if I have some friends come over and help decorate the tree with us? And she was pissed. Like, I didn't see that coming, but she's kind of old fashioned, right? Like, you do these things with the family. There's a family thing. And it's not that I think that she carried that to the grave with her or anything, but what I can tell you is that when you love somebody and there's no more days, you just wish that things could have been better somehow. You start looking for opportunities to make things better. And so I've chosen to take those experiences that I've had and really choose that feeling tone to dictate the way people in my life are going forward. The Romans had a saying around this you might have heard before: memento mori, which roughly translates to remember you too will die. And while, yes, I'm really kicking everybody in the teeth right now, right? We're talking about all this grave stuff. But here's the thing. This grave stuff that I'm bringing up, this very sad kind of stuff, is the very thing that puts you in the driver's seat to have those relationships that you want, to minimize the amount of regret that you have. You could call it loss prevention for loved ones. I don't know, right? But for real, like, you've got to be in touch with the fact that we are in a permanent state of change. Wise man once said, you can never step in the same puddle twice. None of us on this call tonight are the same, precisely down to the molecule, as we were when we started. Life is so ever changing, and it's getting in touch with this ever changing that puts you in the driver's seat. But here's the thing: vision actually helps with this, and that is what I find amazing. With vision, the way I define it is as having three parts. The first one is knowing, right? You might have heard that a sailor with no destination, any wind will take them there, right? Because you're just sitting out in the ocean, you don't have a port in mind, so any wind's just going to take you there. No big deal. So you've really got to know what you want. So what I'd invite you to do right now is just think for a moment, perhaps the closest relationship you have, that person. And really picture the best possible image of what that relationship could look like. Really, really picture this. Imagine what improvements you could make. What is going to bring you and this other person closer and just hold the image. And this leads me to our second thing, and that is connect, right? And keep in mind, please, this is a brief description, but you can use this process for any part of your life. And there is so much more to say as my counterparts here are all getting at, which is just, I love it. I love being here with all of you. When we talk about connecting to our dream, you really want to let yourself play in your imagination as long as possible, which is not something we're taught to do, right? You're in first grade, teacher's already saying, hey, pay attention, right? You get home and maybe your parents are saying, hey, did you clean your room? No, right? Because you were doing kid things. You were being in your imagination. But really, get in your imagination. 5-sensorize this dream. Really get it to a molecular level. Allow yourself to become energetically bonded to it with your emotions. Because what you're going to do is, as you gain clarity on this vision, I invite you to write it down in descript, emotive vocabulary. Because if you don't feel it, you're not going to change anything. It's amazing just how strong emotions can shift an entire paradigm around anything. So we're not used to allowing ourselves to choose the things that we become emotional about and then act in a certain direction. So the key element is being descript. Don't leave the details out, but use emotive language, things that make you feel connected with this. Describe what your imagination is telling you. And the final piece to this, so we've gone over knowing, right, which is kind of blueprinting, it's imagining. We've gone through connecting, which is really, really becoming emotional about this relationship that you're trying to create, right? You can live by design or you can live by default. It's your choice. The third part is becoming. And the thing is, daily review creates your life anew. So what we want to do is, now that we've created a compelling image in our mind, we want to review this daily and allow ourselves to consistently be energetically connected to it. Because that, over time, is how you shift things in the direction that you've chosen for your relationships. If you have questions, I'll be around after. Thank you, everybody.
I love it. Thank you. You know, what really struck me during that was talking about really visualizing and making something real to us, allowing ourselves to be so emotionally really attached to something. It's super powerful. And I think that's something that you're right. We're kind of taught not to dream or to be realistic. And we have to be really careful to protect those dreams. I think that's really important. And the other, I think you also got to like a mastery level when you were talking about, we're not used to choosing how we want to feel about things, choosing our emotional response to things. And that's like the ninja level, right? Because we're so often reactive that we don't think that, wow, like we can predetermine how, how our emotions are affecting our lives and how we want to respond. And, clearly from this, we can have a vision for our relationships, a vision for our career, a vision for our holistic idea of life, a vision for our spiritual life. And these do not, they certainly should not be mutually exclusive. And so I love that. Okay, so before I totally get long-winded, because we need to move along, I want to hear from Michael and bring us home as you're our last speaker tonight, after which we're going to have just a moment of questions and answers for you guys, and I will shut up.
So thank you everyone who kind of set the stage for all this work that we're doing about elevating your best. It's awesome to have Devin set the reason why you need to have a vision. Alan really setting the stage for, how do you get there? And then Kane really, laying the groundwork for the relationships that really make that work and where you need to bring vision towards your relationships. So for me, it's about then what do you do next? What is that next stage? You have that feeling tone. So first off, I want to bring this quote to you of, if you're willing to do only what's easy, your life will be hard. If you're willing to do what's hard, life will be easy. This setting up your vision for your life isn't easy work. It's really getting to know yourself. And that is actually sometimes the longest distance is actually from your head to your heart and learning to know who you are. So thank you for being willing to make this transition and really taking on this hard work. So on the other side of that, things will be easier. For me, for a while, it's about the tools. And where I want to bring those tools to you is around preparation, commitment, accountability, and celebration. Those are the key parts of what I've had to use this past year of 2020 to really kind of keep my head straight, to actually still make progress, even though there's so many possibilities for being derailed. And where I've been derailed in some places, but I've made progress in others, is because I've actually played this out over time and really made it work for me. So I tend to use the vehicle of this journey, this adventure that we're on in our life. So the tools that we actually tend to bring to prepare for taking that snow-clad climb is gonna be a different set of tools than if we're gonna be in the middle of the desert. You're gonna bring layers of clothes if you're actually gonna freeze to death, but instead you want loose, light clothing if you're actually in the middle of the desert. You're gonna bring water whenever you're in the desert. But if you're actually gonna be swimming, bring your swim trunks. I'm not going to be wearing a swimsuit in the desert because I'm going to fry to death. So each of this is the tools we need to be prepared for to bring onto this, leg of our journey. And then what other resources are we using? Preparation. Once we have that vision in mind, we are discovering that we're actually unearthing that vision for us. It's then now, what are we doing for research to determine, is this leg of our journey, not the whole vision, but this next step, that next 200 feet that Devin talked about. Who do we need to reference? Who do we need to research from? And taking that leg of our journey. But our life vision uses different tools. So we've talked about meditation or visualization, really putting yourself into that mindset and seeing where you're going to go. For some people, that's the tool that works because that's the leg of their journey that they're on. Others use journaling. That's actually really the great deep dive that they can use in order to discover who they are, to actually prepare themselves for this vision. Or maybe it's actually listening to speakers like us, or tapping into the wisdom of authors who've spent 5, 10, 20 years to learn as much as they can about something, and they put that in a book. Why wouldn't you leverage that wisdom by taking their 30 years and learn it in a week, a month, or a year of actually going through their book? For me, that deep dive work was actually something called Life Book, where I'm looking at 12 categories of my life and setting up not only my beliefs, but also my vision, my purpose, and my strategy in order to create the vision of the life that I want. That's the tool that I'm on this leg of my journey as I'm preparing for what I'm getting ready to create. Now, these tools are right for certain people, and they're not for others. And you got to find the tools that work best for you. The next phase for me is I actually had this as a fortune cookie. Commitment is what turns a promise into reality. Vision isn't just about that dream in your head for me. It's once you have that dream, what are you committing to do next? What is the reality that you're going to be creating this? And that's not just the dream, it's actually then deciding what the next phase is. So if we're going to be doing this on the journey, this adventure of life, it's not only am I going to the top of that mountain, or I'm going to that city that's across the desert, is which path am I going to take? Because from here to California, there's probably 1,000 different ways to do that. Which path am I going to take? Which path am I going to take on this part of my journey? Someone actually I heard said that a plane that actually leaves New York and flies to California, 90% of the time they're off course, but they still eventually end up at LA. So this is really kind of, choosing your path along the way and really committing to this path to see it till the next leg of our journey. But it's also a matter of packing your gear, getting everything in your pack ready to go, not just having it available in the garage or, in storage or whatever, but actually getting it packed up and ready to go. And then getting to the starting point of that trail, actually showing up, and connecting with the people who are going to travel with you. That's where we kind of get into the next section of when we're really committing to our life vision is, as multiple of the speakers have said, is write it down. That's part of making the commitment. As much of making that commitment to yourself as it is to the people around you. And for me, I post it visibly. I actually have my weekly commitments on a Post-it note sitting here right here in front of my computer. So I see it every single time I actually show up in my office. Every single time I'm looking at email, it's there and available for me. Also, it's a matter of carving out the time, because just because making the commitment, if you don't make time for it, it's not going to happen. Once again, it's making it known to the people who care about you and the people who it may impact or interest you. But the first person who needs to be on board with this commitment is actually yourself, is looking in the mirror and actually making a commitment to that person. That's really what's going to drive you forward. It's very much driven me forward. And there's been times whenever I didn't have a great relationship with that man in the mirror. And I'm now cultivating that and actually moving forward in my life. So my buddy Bob Proctor also talks about accountability as the glue that ties the commitment to the result. That's kind of the next leg of this, is we've made the commitment, but how do we know what that next step is and how far we've come? So if we're talking about traveling, if we're talking about that adventure, it's really looking at the directional signs, the mile markers, the regular check-ins with either your map that you have in front of you, or if it's actually with the crew that you're with, is really staying in communication with them, checking in with them to see how they're doing. Is this pace fast enough or slow enough? But also keeping in mind that all of us are on a journey in this life, yes. And all of us are going at a different pace. And even though we may be going to the same destination, it's going to be a different journey for us because our past is different and our future is different. So even though someone may be really driving forward in the same direction, it's a matter of seeing what works for them and maybe applying some of what that works for you. But for me, I'm never going to be in a tutu wearing a size 2. I'm 6'5" and over 300 pounds. It's just not going to work. I'm not going to learn how to do ballet. It's not on my path. But someone who's actually gearing towards that, awesome. I want to support them to win at that. And really, let's figure out what accountability works for you. So when it comes to your life vision, I use tools from Lifebook. If it's actually a list, a to-do list, or a chart, habits that you're actually building out in your life, and really checking in potentially with a team of people who are there to support you regardless of how it impacts them. So for me, I'm on a men's team, and those men I check in with on a weekly basis on what I'm committed to and what I'm going to do moving forward. I'm also on an accountability group through Lifebook as well. In different aspects of my life, I've actually brought different levels of accountability to them because that's actually what's helped me move forward in my life. But it's also, accountability isn't just a matter of grading yourself along this process. It's also an opportunity to ask for help. This is the barrier that's in front of me, and then I can bring that to the people who are in my circles, and they can actually help me see on the other side, find the blind spots to overcome those tools in order to really create that vision. Because life is a team sport. We're not doing this all by ourselves. And if it's that author or that team or that family member who's actually been through that, they can actually give it a little bit insight that we didn't expect to receive from them. The last phase of this really is, let's not confuse motion and progress. A rocking horse moves, but it's not really making any progress. So it's a matter of accountability, yes, but how do you know once you've actually got to that destination? So for me, it's about the celebration. It's a matter of once you actually get to the top of that mountain, you get across that desert, what do you have to show that you've actually accomplished that? For me, it's actually in the Grand Canyon, you got to take a picture. If you get to the top of that mountain, take a picture and actually maybe put a mark on a map that says that you've actually gotten there. Or maybe it's the meal you have with the people that you went up there with when you're done. Or many times people post their progress up on social media to say, I went there, I did that. That's the celebration. And for some people, it's looking for the likes. It's actually looking for the comments. For others, it's actually just to say is, I struggled through this, and this is actually where I got on the other side. The same thing is true for your life vision. And once you're manifesting it, it's a matter of sharing your wins with your team. If that's your family, your friends, your coworkers, and really actually bringing that to the people who collaborated with you and acknowledge them and show your gratitude towards them. That's part of the celebration, is thank you very much for helping me along this and creating this in my life. And then one of the key reasons for me on why I'm actually building out my life in this life vision is so that I can actually bring what I've learned to others, bring that abundance that I've actually built in the circles of the people that I'm in to a wider scope. So how do I reward myself is by actually bringing that to other people and sharing that experience and having the abundance enough in order to, if I actually want to travel somewhere, that I'm not going alone, that I'm actually going with others and sharing that experience with them. And that really drives me and it lights me up, because that's the kind of world that I want to be, where people are willing to share and share that abundance because they've got so much of it, rather than this past year was so much about focusing, I know for me, on all the things that I couldn't do rather than the things that I could. And then finally going back and looking at 2020 and what I actually did do, 70% was actually pretty darn good on some of the habits that I was looking to accomplish. And I was kicking myself because I think that, I failed at most of the months of this past year, but looking at that gratitude list of the things that I'm grateful for, I'm like, okay, if I could do that in 2020, what can I do in 2021? Whenever some of this stuff is actually passed and we've actually now learned new ways to approach the world. So my last question is, where will you elevate your vision? Where does it need a little bit of fine tuning? Is it in the preparation, getting the training and tools you need in order to accomplish this? Is it making the commitment, making the decision, the resolution, as Devin talked about, in that firm, unwavering commitment to accomplish that? Whereas around accountability, having those teams that are supporting you. Maybe it's one person, maybe it's 50. They're going to actually see and celebrate you and hold you up and hold you accountable to what you say you're going to do. Whereas in the celebration, and actually being able to cherish those small little wins that add up over time to create a massive change in your life. So what tool or team do you need to elevate next? And then my last question is, by when? And when you're ready to do that, there's people around you here that are willing and able to help you create that. Reach out to them. There's some amazing people here to really embrace this with. And thank you very much for your time. I look forward to seeing what type of a vision and a life you create over this next year. Thank you.
Michael, can you go back to that last slide? Maybe.
Yes.
Thank you for that. Okay, go back one. Yes. Okay. So to our audience, is there something here that resonates? We would love to hear from you. This is your time, and we would really love to hear from you. We are right now small enough that we can allow this. And if you have any questions for us, this is your time. So where do you feel like you need to elevate your vision in 2021? We'd love to hear from you. And if you have any questions, yeah, please go ahead.
I mean, I could say that I could take a little bit more action when I feel, kind of scared. I mean, I guess that would be the best way for me to put it. 2020 taught me that lesson better than any other time that I could really say that, especially, like just considering how like the markets went.
Yeah.
I really think that just acting when I'm scared. I think, that about sums it up.
Ooh, to our speakers, what do you guys say? What do you, and you're not the only one. Oh my gosh, me too. So like, what is it that helps us act when we're scared? What has helped you guys?
Suzanne, may I?
Yeah, bring it.
Thank you for that question. There's two things I want to share. One is there's a difference between fear, which is false evidence appearing real, meaning bullshit, and danger. So I would never sit here and say, you just got to do whatever you're afraid of. irresponsible, that's not right, that's not fair. If you are truly in danger in some way, and I don't mean physically, it could be financially, then powering through and doing the tough thing isn't necessarily the right answer. So if you're in agreement, I'm going to set aside danger and say we're not in danger. We know when we're in danger. We're in this area of, this is fear, and my mind is trying to knock me out of doing something that will be good for me, but I'm just afraid because I'm concerned that I'll look bad, or that I won't be accepted, or that I'll fail and look stupid. If we're in that category, then the second thing I would say is, what's helped me is realizing, what is it that I'm actually afraid of? Let me give you an example. First time I went out on stage in front of a whole bunch of people, obviously my heart was racing, right? I think any of us here doing any kind of speaking engagement, you're going to get a little bit antsy the first time you do it. And I thought to myself, what am I actually afraid of? Let's pretend that I do a terrible job and everyone boos me and I have to actually leave the stage. That would be the most horrifying thing that could happen, could it not, if you were afraid of public speaking? And I realized, physically standing on stage in a room full of people going boo is not what I'm afraid of. It's never the physical actuality of an event occurring that you're afraid of. You're afraid of the feeling you think you're going to have if that happens. It's the feeling you're afraid of. You're not afraid of losing the money. You're not afraid of some girl or guy saying they don't like you and you like them. You're afraid of the feeling. And
Yeah.
for me, that softened it a whole bunch, because I realized it isn't a matter of mortality. It isn't a matter of like a physical threat. I'm afraid of a feeling. And guess what? Feelings pass. So it softened it for me and allows me to say, I'm going to do it anyway, because the worst thing that can happen is I feel shit for a moment. And of course, what happens? This is never as bad as you think it is it? Never. It's like a fraction of what you think it is. So that's what I would say to you, is realize that it's the feeling you're afraid of, not the physical thing.
Alan, this is also what you were saying. What was it? Step number 3 or 2, that was like to identify the blocks in the beliefs. What are the beliefs that are blocking that? Isn't that kind of where you were at?
Yeah, I was going to bring that out too.
Yes.
A lot of times when we find a fear like that, we'll find a belief system that was created when we were a child.
Boom.
One of the biggest things that I found, I talked about growing a network marketing business. One of the biggest things that I found was, as a kid, I was always told, don't talk to strangers. And what are we supposed to do when we're networking? The very first thing we have to do is talk to strangers. So, but it took me a little while to figure out what was that fear coming from. And when we start digging into, we run into this block, we run into this procrastination, we run into a fear that really feels like we're in danger. There's going to be a belief system underneath that causing that feeling. Joe Dispenza talks about that. If we're constantly feeling the same thing, we're told the same thing, especially as a young child, when we're still in that learning stage, it becomes such a reality that every experience goes through that filter. And until we can figure out what that filter is and begin to change it, we will continue to create the same experiences and the same emotions, the same feelings within us. And it's really taking that deep dive into that belief system, and combining that with what Devin is saying there, and really realizing that it is just a feeling. It's something that will pass. And do the work on both ends at the same time. It's really, when you start to combine that, it really gets powerful.
How do you do? Was that Kyle? Is that how you feeling?
I feel great about that. I appreciate the clarity pertaining to danger. I wasn't necessarily referring to
Right.
I mean, I'm also ex-military as well, so um, you know, being diligent, super important. You know, and I'm not gonna say that I laugh in the face of danger, but still, you know, there's a level of tolerance, I guess I could say. Not, um,
Yeah,
I
everyone's
guess I
tolerant.
guess more like for particularly like what I was referring to, um, was there was like just a period where I was really just totally it was I was stuck and it was you know, I didn't know what to do, and so like that's more or less kind of what I'm talking about, just like, you know,
Yeah.
I feel like I lost my faith in that period, and uh it was strange for all of us. 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 So very grateful, and it was a magnificent lesson, and it was one that was learned very quickly. So I'm thankful for
That's even better, right?
most
You
certainly.
can get through it. I want to open us
Yeah,
up
yes,
for
it
other
is.
questions as well. Does anyone else have anything going on or any other areas you want to focus on?
Actually, this is Eric. I kind of had a follow-up question for Kyle, being ex-military myself. And my first question was like how long you've been out. And the reason why I'm asking that is because from my own personal experience and getting out of the military, I struggled for a while doing that. And really what I've discovered is that in the military, there's a structure. It's very structured. And being a veteran, you kind of follow that structure. And when you get out, there is no structure. And what I really had to learn was to develop my own structure for myself personally. So I just kind of passing that along as, you know, something I discovered for myself.
I so I totally understand you, sir. What's your question exactly?
Well, I was kind of passing along what I discovered, and I was kind of wondering how long you've been out of the military.
Okay, I well, mm, it'll be 4 years tomorrow, actually. Wow. That's crazy that she just asked me that. What day is today? Wow. Yeah, it'll be 4 years tomorrow. Wow.
Everything happens when it's supposed to and at exactly the right moment in time.
Wow, that's cool. Yep. Yeah, so that I totally understand that it's tough. And so that's another reason, you know, why I'm on this call to
I totally get that. Thank you so much, guys. Question for actually the group in general, because especially several of you talked about emotions, and this kind of goes with what Kyle was saying. How do you do this when you're numb? Because, you know, we have a time now where some people are just crawling out of 2020. This is a real context. There are real things happening. And there are times in our lives when we go numb, whether it is, you know, because we're depressed, we're in trauma, we're in, you know, PTSD. What do you do when you feel numb and you can't, that vision just feels blocked and you can't feel it? How do you awaken that or unblock that?
It seems to me that that is certainly coming from a place of fear, significant fear. The first thing I would say is if you do have something like a PTSD or some sort of anything serious like that, see an actual professional that is extremely familiar with the symptoms, where it comes from, how to address that. That is one thing that I've been asked several times as a coach. And usually if somebody has something like that, I want to know if they're also getting help from somebody, because coaching is not in place of, it works very well with therapy. So that I would make that distinction for any type of a coach. That's very important. Many of us understand those things, but it's different when you're licensed and you have a whole education around that. But the second thing, fear is like a weed in the garden. I don't care how many times you yank it, it's coming back. And the reason for that is there's part of our mind that's solely responsible for protecting your organism, your body, to keep you alive. And that part is extremely old in our biology. And the thing is, when you're reacting from a fear-based response, your body treats it as though it's a physical threat. So what I would say is the first thing is just to know what you're experiencing. Hey, I'm experiencing significant fear here. And to train yourself, because this is a skill. We're not all cut out of the box able to do this right away, but everybody can do it. Is to train yourself to notice what you're noticing. Hey, I'm feeling some kind of a way here that I don't like. And then it's to literally step out of the equation and give yourself a bird's eye view and say, okay, why did that, whatever it was, trigger that response? But you've got to be in a space where you can do that. So for example, let's say you don't have a serious condition mentally. However, you just experienced a death in the family or a breakup or a loss of something, right? There's going to be an adjustment period before you're ready to give this kind of neutral response. The thing with the mind that I find is that it does get hurt in a similar way to the body. If you get a physical cut, there is a set period of time, depending on your health and all this kind of thing, before you get healed from that. But the challenge with the mind is you can't see it, right? But what you can do is have certain things in your life that anchor. I like what Eric was saying earlier about having routines in the military and then having to sort of define our own. Well, every person has to go through this, and you can have things like gratitude practices, affirmations, meditations, the big three that all of the coaches talk about, and they will help you when you're ready to start breaking this thing down and moving through it. But realize that fear doesn't mean that you can't. Fear just means that you haven't. And one of the interesting things I see a lot of people doing is when they start to get fearful, they have like a fight relationship with it. And you can't do that because it's an integral, important part of who you are. If you're suppressing parts of who you are, that's dangerous. But instead, you honor it and you say, up until this point, this fear response has kept me safe. And so you honor it. Don't crap on it. Okay? And realize that what got you here won't get you there. So when you're ready to have that conversation with yourself and say, why did I have that fear response? My God, like I just came home after a bad day of work and I blew up on it. That doesn't even make sense. Once you realize that you're acting illogically, it's coming from emotion land. Time to start doing some diving on that. So I hope that helps.
Thank you, Kane. And one last question, and I think that we will call it a wrap almost, is what to do when you feel overwhelmed, because there's so many areas of our life that we create a vision for our relationships, our finances, our career, our spiritual health. Having a holistic perspective, it can seem very overwhelming. And some of us have a lot of shit to do. So how do we keep from feeling overwhelmed? Devin, please.
The first thing, this is really silly. For me, overwhelm is when there's too much up there and I'm afraid I'm going to forget it. Just write that shit down. Get it out of your brain. If it's a to-do list, if it's something you eloquently were able to describe in your head and you're afraid you're going to, just write that shit down. Get it out of the brain, get it out of your mind, and then you have space. The other thing, which is a much softer, more kind of cerebral response, is tell me if you guys agree, all of us, the fact that we're on here talking about visions for the future and creating the life we want, we're all ambitious. Is that fair? We all have a degree of ambition within us, which means, unfortunately, we also come wired with a measuring stick. I think I should be at this point by then. I should have done this. I should have done that, right? We're all, unfortunately, beating ourselves up because we think we should be at a certain point. And I feel overwhelmed at times when I perceive that there's so much needs to be done to get to where I think I should be now. But that's not a game that's fun for anyone to play. That's not going to result in anyone feeling fantastic. And what helps me, and really honestly, what has fueled me a lot over the last 9-12 months, is to realize we have time. We have time. Like, let's stop being in such a hurry to be, I don't know, a global superstar, a multi-millionaire, have the body like Wolverine. What? Just calm. We have time. Get it out of your head and on paper and work your way through it. There's no point in rushing it because we won't enjoy the journey. What's the point in being here if we're not going to enjoy the journey? And for me, overwhelm comes when I acknowledge the cavernous gap between where I am and where I want to be.
That is
And
so,
that has to be a gift because we have time to get there. It can't be something that I beat myself up with and feel overwhelmed.
I love it because that also leads us back to what Alan was saying about how we want to feel.
Yeah.
And to kind of have, as Tony Robbins says, a pattern interrupt where we catch ourselves in that feeling and then, you know, understand this is not where I want to be. So, you know, Devin, I didn't know if you wanted to also continue with this, but like, so when we're overwhelmed, we know we don't want to feel that way. What about not knowing where to start?
You mean with respect to specific actions?
Sure.
So all of you guys tell me, can you think of a time where you were completely confused, overwhelmed, you had no idea what to do, something that was overwhelmingly complicated? I don't know whether it's something in your business, a really difficult conversation. Answer me this. Did you figure out a way through it? Did you find the little string on which to pull to start? Did you always find somewhere to begin? Yeah, of course you did. Otherwise you wouldn't be having this conversation. So know that going into it, there is always a way. I repeat, always a way. Here's the secret. You are not going to find that way when you're in a shitty state. When you're in a depressed, contracted, I'm not good enough, I don't know where to start, emotional state, you don't have access to the higher brain function, intuition, and intelligence that you need to figure out where to start. So I think get it out of your head on paper, put it down, put distance between you and the issue, and clean this up. I don't care if it's jump up and down for 30 seconds to your favorite dance tune, go for a run, do some kickboxing, have your favorite meal, whatever it is, do something different with your body to change and elevate your emotional state so that you become more resourceful. And I promise you that problem is no longer a problem. You're like, oh, obviously it's that. But I'll start there. Duh.
Love it. I
The
love
other
it.
part too,
Clean this up first.
I would
Yeah.
absolutely add to that. I mean, that everything you said is gold. And especially like you're not going to get higher brain function when you're in a crappy state. One additional thing that can help you with that is connect to your why. Right? If you're doing this vision work and you're living on purpose, right, by design rather than by default, your why is the most powerful thing that you got. For me, when I think about, just to give you an example, something that I've talked about, the people that I've loved and lost, that's a pretty powerful why when I'm having an argument with somebody to be a better person. And I'm no longer worried about the how. All I care about is loving this person and setting things the way that they need to be in the highest good of all.
Mm.
And so it is with your business if you have a business. Why did you go into business to begin with? You could have chosen any industry, garbage collecting, being an engineer, whatever, but you chose the industry that you're in. Why'd you do that? What do your customers thank you for, right? If you're looking at your health and you're struggling because maybe you went off your diet that day, well, what was your big why for doing it to begin with? Connect to your why. One of the most important things you can do.
Thank you.
There's one last piece that I want to add to that, and that was, at least for me, is when it's overwhelming is whenever I look at the whole mountain I need to climb and I have no idea how to get there.
Yeah.
So it's really a matter of then breaking it down into the much smaller chunks. Because if I can see the next step, maybe that's what I need to do. Maybe it's the next 5 steps I need to take, and start with that, and then celebrate when I've done that, because that then changes the state. Is instead of actually seeing that I need to lose 100 pounds, go for 2 and celebrate with something that isn't going to then derail me from that which I've actually originally tried to do in the first place. Don't have a huge Sunday because I lost 2 pounds, but make that celebration experience some way to celebrate that with someone that I care about, or something, and bring that forward so that then there is an opportunity to not feel the overwhelm. And it can be hard to kind of break it down to that small piece. And maybe it is really kind of swing to the other side of that and say, okay, business is doing really crappy right now. Let's actually go and get spiritual for a moment. Let me go out and connect with the world. Get my feet on the ground just for 2 minutes. If I can hold my attention for 2 minutes, I'm going to celebrate by jumping up the air and saying woohoo. Something that is that small little win to get over the overwhelm.
Mm-hmm.
That's
So
what
that's 3, right? We just had 3 like powerful things here. Break it down into smaller steps. And then Devin had the Zen moment. He said, there is always a way. And that just hit. And then Kane said, reconnect to your why. And it's like, oh yes, why am I here in the first place? So those were brilliant. I think Shane, do you have a question?
Well, I felt compelled to add to that something that seems to be common among the other bits of really valuable advice that have been shared so far, is that it seems to me that when I or someone else I'm observing is in one of those points of really being stuck, is that there's a faulty assumption at work. And something that we all have in common is, well, there's reality as it is, and then we have our ideas about reality. And we so often get stuck with an idea that is faulty somehow. It either doesn't reflect reality as it is, or it's just simply not useful, regardless of whether or not it's reflecting reality accurately or not. So if it's a matter of fear or it's a matter of overwhelm, probably we're holding on to some idea about reality as though it is reality. And I find a lot of value in distinguishing one thing from another, whether I'm not motivated, or I'm afraid, or I'm overwhelmed, or I'm numb. You know, there's something that I can work through cognitively that can kind of bring the noise level down of whatever the problem is, and help me to get reconnected with myself, with my heart, without getting overwhelmed emotionally or intellectually or whatever. I can create my own path in the moment, cognitively, by distinguishing one thing from another and creating the path forward. There's oftentimes we think there's something to find, and there just isn't. We have an idea that there's something to find, and if we have that set up, well, now we have an extra task on our plate. Well, maybe it's just something that needs to be polished off or swept away. And I find that helpful for myself.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I love it. I feel like we're kind of preaching to the choir, but I love it. And this is how we love to go deep. Gentlemen, I want to respect your time, and I am grateful you're here. I'm grateful you allowed us to fill your evening or part of your evening and share it with you. And we want to be of value to you, and we want to show up in ways that make a difference. And so if you would like to give us any feedback on the session, we would welcome it. We won't keep you tonight, but have it offline. Additionally, if you did find it's valuable, we would love for you to share, you know, what's going on. We have the Facebook page as well. I think each of us are also advertising on our own pages. And if you have topics that you really want to hear about, things that you're struggling with in your work, I know we have several coaches here as well. Bring it. Let's bring it up and go somewhere with it. So with that in mind, Michael, as my co-host, is there anything else you would like to leave us with?
I just want to say thank you to everyone for really showing up and asking questions and being willing to allow us be potentially guides on this leg of your journey. Because I really do think that this is a journey that's a team sport. So thank you very much for your time. And we'll be sending out a survey a little bit later. And any and all positive, negative, or otherwise feedback is fantastic. It's how we can deliver more value back to you is by us knowing whether the value lands for you.
Absolutely. And for those of you who signed up for the free 30-minute coaching session, we will reach out to you. So thank you so much. And I pray everyone have an amazing 2021, and I hope to see you again. Good night.
Bye, guys.
Good night.
Bye.